if you could just, okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I don't know where to begin, and yet you have to excuse me because I might sort of fumble in between. But anyway, let me just try to put things in perspective. My relationship with Swami began right from the time of birth, and I can actually divide it into like two phases. One is before Swami's Mahasamadhi, and one is after Swami's Mahasamadhi. So, if I have to begin from the time of my birth, I was born into a Sai family, and therefore there was no need for me to get initiated into the Sai fold. There was no need for me to really experience or to question whether he was God, because I belonged to a family that had already had those experiences, and they had already started believing that he's God. So right from the time I was born, he was already God for me. He was already adorning the, his pictures were adorning the walls of my house. He was there in the altar, so we used to pray to him. But he was a God figure, like he was not like a mother or father or friend or guru or whatever. He was God for us then. So it was like God and devotee, and I always used to feel a certain distance between us, as in um, if the relationship is that of a mother or a friend, the relationship is more close. But when it is the relationship between God and devotee, we always have this feeling that, he's way above us and we are way below him. And, we look at him with veneration and respect. And we, just pray to him for things like, Swami, help me with this, Swami, help me with that, and things like that. But after many, many years, after I joined Anantapur and after I came out of Anantapur, this relationship between me and Swami changed drastically. He is no more, he is God, of course, I will not deny that, but now he's more of a friend, he's more of a mother, actually. So then the relationship becomes all the more close because you have more and more conversations with him. You tell him things, you ask him things, you get angry with him, you shout at him, and then you patch up and everything, all those kind of things. He tests you and then he gives you things, everything like that. So things have really changed over the last many years. As I grew up and it was time for me to go to college, my mother decided that I should study in Swami's college, and I really did not want that. Frankly, I mean, many of you will be very surprised, but I really did not want to go to Anantapur to study, because for me back then it was, like, why should I go? Why should I study in a hostel? And I was so attached to my mother that for me to stay away from her even for a day was something unthinkable. So much and then I thought, okay, what is the big deal? I'll just write the entrance exam. I may not clear it as well, because both my sisters, I have two elder sisters, they wrote the entrance exam too and they didn't clear it. So I was thinking, oh, it's probably just I'll just write it. I may not clear it like them, and then I don't have to go. Why do I fuss and why do I say I don't want to go? But much to my displeasure, I cleared the entrance, and then it was time for me to leave my house and move to Anantapur. And you'll be also very surprised to hear that until the time I got admission in Anantapur campus, I never actually visited Puttaparthi. So I have never seen him. Like I said, Swami was God for me. We just used to look at his pictures and pray to him and things like that. But I've never seen him at all until the time I got admission in Anantapur. So the first time I saw Swami was in Vrindavan after I secured an admission, because that year we were supposed to have the summer course. And when I saw him, I mean, I cannot explain, the emotions that I felt, when I saw him walking past us and things like that. Not that he came and spoke to me or anything, but that moment of, looking at him was completely transformational for me. And I have also been told that every time students write the entrance exam and the students would clear it, they make the administration people, they make a list of the students and then send the final list to Swami for him to see. So he is the one who looks at the final list and, selects or approves of the list. So which means that every student who studies in Swami's institution has his approval, has been chosen by him. So I will not, I mean, it is a matter of great pride for all the students who have studied, are studying, or will be studying in future. It's a matter of great pride to be associated with that institution. It is a very, very strict place, not an easy place to live. Because the rules are very strict for the girls. And you must have seen that, Swami is physically more close to the boys. When he was there, he used to be very close to the boys. But that did not mean that he was not, close to us. We had our time with him, our special time, when he used to call us for interview, either in the interview room or at Trai, and we have had these discussions where Swami used to make up for all the time that he did not spend with us, and teaching us a lot of things about values, about Indian culture, about how women should be, how, since we were all graduating and many of us would immediately be getting married and moving to our in-laws' house. So he would actually tell us that we are Swami students, we are his children, we are his daughters, which is why, we have to bring a good name to him. It is very important. So he would make sure that he would tell us many, many things, in the process of those talks that we had with him. And again, when we would leave Puttaparthi or Vrindavan to come back to Anantapur, because we used to visit only during festivals, Swami would make sure that, just like a mother sends out her daughter to her in-laws' house with lots of, goodies, he would give us a lot of things to eat. He would give us seasonal fruits, and he would tell us, I know it is not easy in Anantapur. I know you girls are, it is very difficult for you, but believe me, this is like a training ground for you. Anytime in the future, when you face a difficult situation, the situation will not be any more difficult for you because you have lived here. So, he would, tell these things. And when it was coming from his mouth, we were like, no, Swami, no, it is okay. We are happy. We are very happy. Things like that. And Swami used to make sure that, the girls are his daughters. And he used to make us feel every time that, he loves us no less than the boys. We are equally important. And things like that. So, and sometimes when we used to sit in the darshan grounds, the public always has, their eyes are always on us. They would always, complain about the students. They say students talk so much. Students are so indisciplined, and see how close they are to Swami, and yet, they behave like this. And when they used to say things like that, Swami used to get very, very upset. But he would never tell anything to them. He would tell us, that, look, the whole world is watching you. Everyone around you is watching you. Wherever you go, wherever you are seated, standing, walking, living, you should always remember that the world is watching you. And therefore, you must always, behave like a Sai student. You must be exemplary. People should look at you and ask, where have these, students come from? Who are they? I mean, they are so well disciplined, so calm and quiet. They don't talk unnecessarily. So these are the things, through examples, he used to make us imbibe these things and make us ever conscious of ourselves, that yes, people are watching us. It was very, very important for us to maintain the dignity of a Sai student at all times. It is not like when you are in Parthi, you are a student, when you're out of Parthi, you're not. It's not like that. You are Once you have got your admission there, from that time on until this entire birth, you are a Sai student. Therefore, you are constantly being watched, and therefore you must really behave yourself and like a Sai student. These are things that Swami always taught us. And I realized the value of being a Sai student more after I stepped out of Anantapur. Because wherever you go, when you go to your samiti, when you finish your graduation and you come back home, and your samiti then invites you and says that, oh, she's from Anantapur, and the way they look at you, and with your Sai student, as if Swami himself has come. Sometimes that is how they kind of behave or treat you, and it makes you feel like, oh my God, am I really worthy of so much of uh, the way they treat us? So that again puts so much pressure on us that yes, um, even after we leave, the importance of being a Sai student gets multiplied once you leave the precincts of the institution, because that is when you have to keep it up all the time of Swami's teachings, and the way Swami used to like us to be, the way Swami had taught us to be. These are the things I have to constantly keep in mind, and it's not easy actually many a times, but nevertheless, all of us really try our best. I remember once when I was in Anantapur campus, we have something called a self-reliance program in Anantapur. This program is specially designed to inculcate values and certain skills in the students. For example, we used to have food serving, we used to have hostel cleaning, we used to have art, we used to have theatrics, and we used to have music. So, sorry. I remember I was very interested to be part of the music self-reliance, because I used to think that, I am a good singer. Not that I'm a great singer, but I really wanted to be part of that, because students who are part of the music self-reliance get to sing in front of Swami. So that was the biggest motivation to be there. And I was all, as a child, I mean, right from childhood, I have been part of bhajans and all that. So I used to think that I can sing fairly well. So let me give it a shot. And I was all prepared, on the day of the audition. You won't believe what happened. The morning of the audition came, and I got up with a very, very terrible sore throat. The sore throat was so terrible that, leave alone singing, I could not even talk. So I was like, what? I mean, on a day like this, which is so important for me, and I have waited for this for so long, and I get up with a sore throat and I can't sing. I mean, what is this, Swami? This is not at all fair. Nevertheless, I went for the audition, and I told them, I said, can I give my audition on some other day? But the teacher who was in charge, she said, we're very sorry, because we have allotted days. So whoever comes and sings on that day and sings well are the only ones who are chosen for the self-reliance. If not today, then you must try next year or the year after, whichever, but not this year for sure. I was terribly disappointed, because, and here there is no way that you could negotiate, because with Swami, rules are rules. They are never broken. So, and teachers there are very strict about these things. They they also know that though we are in Anantapur, much away from Puttaparthi, but we are constantly under the watchful eyes of Swami. So we are very, very careful of what we do. And we will not like to break the rules, because that will make Swami unhappy. Because we used to visit Puttaparthi as students, like I said, for every festival, which used to, fall almost one festival every month. So which means we would visit Puttaparthi quite often. So we wanted to be, while we were in Anantapur also, we always wanted to do the right thing. So there went my dreams of, becoming a singer, all that crashed. singing in front of Swami, totally ruled out. And I said, Swami, this is not fair. But Swami made up for this lost opportunity years later, many years later. And at a time when I completely forgot about it, and when I was not even thinking about it, it simply fell on my lap. I did not even ask for it. It came to me. So I will come to that later, but this is just a background that I'm giving for, I will tell you what happened many years later with the singing thing. Okay, so after I finished my graduation, I stepped out of Anantapur, and after a couple of years, I got married. I was not married into a Sai family. My in-laws were not devotees, but thankfully, they understood my love and respect for Swami, and therefore they allowed me to continue uh, with Sai activities and all that. Because I'm saying this because there are many of my friends I know who were not even allowed by their in-laws. Some of my friends who were not married into the Sai families were not even allowed to keep a photo of Swami in the altar. So in that way, I consider myself very blessed because my in-laws never interfered with my devotion or respect or love for Swami. They always allowed me to continue with my service activity, because for me, these service activities were the only opportunity to give back to Swami what I have received, from him, from his institution. So, and and then 2011, and Swami took his Mahasamadhi. This was a very difficult time for all of us, because having seen Swami physically for so many years, it was very difficult, for us to imagine how it would be, to live without his physical form, to go to Parthi and not see him. And there were so many questions in our mind. Will life still be the same? Will things still go on as before? And, as we have seen, that things have not just continued, but they are so much better. They are as though Swami is still there. All the activities continue, everything continues. We still continue to feel the presence of Swami in various ways. So, in fact, I would say that now Swami has become more close to many of us, including me. So, like I told you earlier, he was God to me. So after my marriage, slowly that relationship changed from Swami being a God to Swami being my mother. Because I used to go to him for everything. I was married in Chennai. This was completely a new place for me. I am a Tamilian, no doubt, but Chennai was very new to me. I have always lived in the northern part of India. So it was very new and difficult, but Swami, with the help of Swami, I was able to adjust and align myself, and within a few years, become very comfortable. And after my son was born, after a year or two, it so happened that it was time for him to go to school. And then the hunt for school began. And there was this school which was very close, very far away from my house, but it was a very good school. And my husband was very interested that my son should go to that school, because that school gave a lot of importance to Indian culture, and they used to teach children Vedas and shlokas. And my husband thought that in a time like this, times that we live in, these will really help children, to stay grounded and all that. So, but the problem was the school was really far, and my son was 2.5 at the time, and I was really not interested to send him that far. And but my husband was very keen. So there was this kind of arguments and discussions, and I was at a point, I didn't know what to do. I liked the school, but I didn't want to send him to the school, but I had no other option, because there were no good schools close by. So my husband said, we don't have any option. I mean, what are we going to do then? So I was like, okay, Swami, please rescue me from this very difficult situation. I mean, I know this is a good school, but I will not, you understand why, as a mother, I don't want to send such a small, toddler in a bus to school this far. please help me, after, and then after weeks of intense prayer, you will not believe if I tell you that within 3 kilometers of my house, a new school was started. A school that was well known in Andhra Pradesh, but they started their branch in Chennai. And one of the branches that they started was very close to my house. So I was like, Swami, I mean, just look at him. I have always felt that, when you pray to him, your prayers are sincere. Your prayers don't have the intention of harming anybody. And when you completely surrender and you tell him that, Swami, this is the situation, I don't know what I have to do. It is all left to you. And whatever you tell me, I'm going to do this. I'm telling you from experience that he takes complete control. He really takes complete control. And the solutions that he offers are something you can never imagine. Like, he started a new school building in a place where, it was not supposed to be at all. I mean, it was suddenly, it was so shocking, actually, surprising and shocking, and happiness at the same time, of course. And then obviously then my son started going to that school, so that is one thing. And another experience that I had very recently was, I had we bought a new house, and we were supposed to have the graha pravesh of that house. And we were very excited, obviously, for it. And then I thought that, I'm going to write my first invitation will go to Swami. So I kind of downloaded the invite, and I wrote a letter to Swami. I said, Swami, my house, I bought a new house. Please come and grace the occasion and things. Actually, I wanted him to come. It's not like I was informing him. I wanted him to come and, grace the occasion. And okay, and I was really believing that Swami is going to come. And I posted the letter, and incidentally, that week when I was reading the Shri Sai Satcharita, the Shri Sai Satcharita, I read the chapter that opened before me was one where Swami attends the Udyap and the thread ceremony of someone. He goes disguised as a person, and as a sadhu, and and two other boys who go with him. So I was like really thinking that, oh, Swami is going to give such kind of an appearance at my Graha Pravesh also. Otherwise, what a coincidence. Why should I read this chapter at this time? So Swami is probably giving me an indication that he's going to attend my Graha Pravesh. So on the day of the Graha Pravesh, I was all excited, and I was looking at everyone just to see if I could, if it could be Swami. I was looking out for any person who I hadn't invited and yet had come. So the function went, the puja happened, guests came, guests left, and there was no sign of Swami. I was like, what? Swami again? I mean, what is this? My prayer was so earnest. I really wanted you to come. I really prayed so hard. And despite all that, you didn't come. And how we are, isn't it? We, in our limited thinking, we usually, immediately we get angry and we say, Swami, yeah, who am I? Why will you come to my house? Obviously, I'm not such an important person. All these, kind of thoughts started, coming in my mind as well. And after a couple of months, it so happened that, I was listening to a YouTube link of Professor Kasturi, where he was actually reading out a poem that he had written for Swami, and he was explaining the poem. And in the course of the poem, Professor Kasturi narrated an incident. He said, let me tell you an incident of a man who actually bought a house and was having the house warming and invited Swami for the Graha Pravesh. And you can imagine, I was all ears. I was like, yes, let me hear what Swami did. And this man, he invites Swami. He says, Swami, housewarming of my house. Can you please come, Swami? And the Swami says, oh, your house. And then he says, no, Swami, not my house, it's our house. sorry. And then Swami says, oh, our house, partnership, 50-50. I said, no, 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 Swami, not our house, not our house. Swami, your house, Swami, your house. And then Swami says, oh, my house. So you are inviting me for the housewarming of my house. Who are you to invite me to my house if you know that it's my house? You know, you can imagine the feelings that I had. I was not all tears when I said, "Oh, Swami, I'm so sorry that mm, I actually, I'm so sorry. I shouted at you. I got angry at you, and I'm so glad that you gave me this indication that it is your house. You know, who am I to invite you to your house? And I'm also very glad that you gave me this indication that it's your house, which means, you know, you're already there, and I'm so blessed and I'm so happy. See, that is human, that is how human we are. Even after being associated with Swami for several years, you know, we still sometimes get these doubts, these questions, and we get angry, and we think that our right time has arrived and things are not happening, and why Swami is not doing to me, why he's doing to him. We start comparing, you know. And of course we do realize in time that, you know, how foolish we are. But when that, at that moment, you know, we really stop thinking. And let me also narrate here another incident about the singing thing that I told you before, that when it was a time for my music self-reliance, I had a sore throat. So I could not be part of the music self-reliance that year. And you know what I did? I did not even try in my second or third year because I was so upset. You know, I was like, okay, Swami, anyway, you didn't give me chance in my first year, and I don't want to give my name again in the second and third year because I don't know what you're going to do. You know, something again will happen and you will not take me. You know, this kind of, you know, petty thinking that comes to our mind. I was no exception at that time. And then years later, when I moved to Chennai, I got associated with a Samiti in Pallavaram. That Pallavaram is the place where I live in. And it so happened that there is a Shiti Sai temple, which is in a place called Gindi. And there, every Thursday, they have Abhishek and Archana and Aarti of the Shirdi Sai statue there. The uniqueness of the temple there is that is the only temple where you can see the Shirdi Sai statue in black marble. It's a very small statue, but it's very beautiful. And Swami had come himself several years ago to install it. I mean, for the inauguration of the temple. So it's a very special temple for Sai devotees. And so every Thursday, because they have this Archana and Abhishek, they want that Samiti women, the women of the Samitis, different Samitis that are close by, should come and do bhajans. So our Samiti was also part of that. And it so happened that every year, the lady who used to go to sing on Thursdays, that year, this is in 2017 or so, it so happened that she had some family problems, because of which she could no longer continue attending the bhajans. So she informed our Samiti coordinator that, can you please find some, alternate person to go in my place, because I don't think I will be able to go and sing. So my Samiti coordinator, there was nobody else. It is so surprising, actually. At that point, there was nobody else available. And when I had joined the Samiti, I had told her, like, I'm very interested in bhajan. So in case there is bhajan anywhere, please let me know. I would like to be part of it and all that. So she remembered me and she called me, and, she told me that there is this opportunity. So it's a very special mandir and a very special opportunity for devotees, Samiti members. So will you, like to go and take part in the bhajan? So you have to be the lead singer, and you have to go there whenever it is, whenever the turn for our Samiti comes. So I mean, again, like I told you, when I was not given a chance in my college days to sing. I was very angry with Swami. But after many, many years, Swami gave me this opportunity to not just be a singer, because those who are from Chennai will know that in Chennai, women singers do not sing solo. They always sing in groups. They at least two singers, sing together. They never sing alone. The men sing alone, but the women mostly they never do that. But in my samiti, it so happened that there was nobody else to sing with me, so they did not have a choice, and I was the only person, and I had to sing solo in front of Swami, of course. And it is a very, very special temple. And it is a temple, and it is not where you get a chance to sing very easily. So, which makes it all the more special. So, after many years, when I completely forgot about the music self-reliance and everything, suddenly this opportunity falls on my lap, unasked, and making me the lead singer. And you know how it is on Thursdays in any Sai temple, totally packed, crowded, to the brim. And see, that is Swami. Our Swami is always loving. Our Swami is always caring. Our Swami knows when is the right time, and he gives us all the opportunities, but only when we are ready for it. We think we are ready, but he knows when is the right time, for us, which we can never judge. I think we should never even try to judge, because who knows best other than him? And he's like the mother, who sometimes makes you angry. He kind of enjoys it, seeing you angry, and then he gives it to you, and then sees the reaction. Now tell me, what do you feel? That kind of Swami, though he's divine, but just for the sake of us, he comes down to our level to interact, to talk, to do things in the way that we would want him to do. And so that one day we really, rise up to the level that he wants us to be in. So just one last incident before I end my talk. Recently, my mother was very unwell, and she was in the hospital. And I was in Chennai, and she was in Calcutta. So we went, and I went from Chennai to Calcutta to take care of her, and she was very, very pretty serious actually. And we didn't know what to do. Doctors were not giving us too much hope. Like one day they would say she's better, and the second day they would say that no, her condition doesn't look very good. And I didn't. Those 2 weeks were very intensely traumatic for us, and constantly we were praying to Swami to sort of help my mother and things like that. And two of my sisters, they live abroad, and they could not even come, so I was the only one there. And we were constantly praying to Swami to do something, some miracle. Swami, please, I mean, do something, help, please help us. And it so happened that one of my sister's friend who lives in Bangalore, in those 2 weeks, one day, somebody from the Brindavan Super Speciality Hospital brought vibhuti for her, which actually materialized from Swami's photograph. And this girl, she was so kind, I would say. She was kind enough to send the entire lot, that entire packet of vibhuti to my mother. She remembered that my mother is very ill, and she, sort of sent it through post. And the moment we heard that Swami's vibhuti is coming for my mother, we were thrilled. We thought, our prayers are finally answered. So mommy is going to be well, she'll be fine, and things like that. But the vibhuti was just not arriving. I mean, it had been posted, but somehow it was not reaching us. So we started getting desperate that, where is it? Why is it taking so long? Why is it not coming? Why is it not coming? And then finally, the day that the postman actually delivered it to our house, that was the day and time when I was actually talking to a friend of mine who is also a doctor about shifting my mother to another hospital. So we took that as a very good sign. The vibhuti arriving and my mother shifting to another hospital for better facilities. And we shifted her, the vibhuti came, we applied the vibhuti on her forehead, and she was pretty bad when we shifted, but we had hopes. Vibhuti has come, so we thought, "And now nothing can, everything will be fine. It's just a matter of time before she'll be fine again." But gradually it so happened that, condition only worsened, and ultimately it so happened that she passed away on 14th of September 2020, and she contracted COVID, and it was horrible actually. I'm not going too much into it, but the important thing here is that the vibhuti that we got, from Swami, my father had actually given her that vibhuti, a small vibhuti container, which we had put in that container, the vibhuti. And every day I used to go to hospital, I used to carry that container, and I used to request the nurses and the attendants to apply vibhuti on my mother's forehead. See, Calcutta, the hospital people, they wouldn't understand, and they said, "This is ICU, you cannot go, you cannot see." Because of COVID, there were restrictions, so they were not allowing us. So literally every day I had to stand there and beg, "Please apply this on my mother's forehead and give me this box back." Because my father was very particular. "This is Swami's vibhuti. We don't want to leave it in the hospital, and we don't want to lose it, you know." And so it went on. And on the day my mother passed away, I applied it on her forehead and all that. And then I came back because of the COVID restrictions. We were not allowed to bring, the body was not handed over to us. So we had to leave her at the hospital like that and come back home. After a couple of days, we started looking for the Vibhuti Dabba. We started looking, we said, "Where is that Vibhuti box?" Because we can use the Vibhuti, and where is it? Where did we keep it? We started searching for the box. And I remember I had put it in a cover which had all my mother's reports, and which I was carrying to the hospital every day, so that I don't forget to take the Vibhuti box with me. So we were, I completely took out everything from that cover, and, everything was there except the Vibhuti box. And it was so surprising. And I remembered that, I had applied vibhuti to my mother after she passed away also, because I said, "Swami, okay, we can't do anything, but at least I'll put vibhuti for her." I applied vibhuti. I remember, then where is that box? Everything else is there. The box is missing. It so happened that, I had taken clothes from home to be draped around my mother for her final journey. And I had kept the vibhuti in that box again, so that I don't forget. And can you believe it? The vibhuti actually remained in that cover along with the clothes, and I did not, bring that cover back. Obviously, I shifted the box from one cover to the other, and I left it there with my mother. It was with my mother. It was beside my mother. I never brought it back. So, though my mother passed away, we were very, 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 very happy that, Swami's vibhuti, Swami went with her in the form of vibhuti in her last journey. She did not go alone. And see, the vibhuti that came for my mother also went with my mother. It was meant for her, it was used for her, and when it was of no use for her, Swami took it back. He did not, give it to us for us to use. So that vibhuti was very special. This is something that will remain with us, forever and ever. We'll remember forever. And also one more very, interesting thing that I want to tell you is, my mother was not, she was very spiritual and devoted, but she was not a person who would sit and do puja. That my father does. He sits for hours together, he does puja, but my mother never sits and does puja. But in the 6 months before her passing away, Swami actually was preparing her for the final journey, something we never realized. Because every single day from March 2020 until the day she got admitted to the hospital, she would chant Sai Gayatri, Gayatri Mantra, Mahamrityunjay Mantra, and one shloka from Narayaniyam, which is meant to ward off diseases. All these four mantras she used to chant 108 times every single day. A person who never used to do that was actually doing this in the last 6 months. unknowing to us and unknowing to her, Swami was preparing for her soul to be, merged in the divine. He was preparing her for the final journey so that when the time comes, she is, uh, spiritually completely inclined and, thinking only about the Lord. So in the last 6 months, the only thing she was doing is constantly doing namasmarana, thinking of the Lord and chanting his name continuously. So, though the circumstances in which she died was very untoward and something that we would not have wanted, her to pass away this way, but Swami, took care of everything. He made sure that she did just the right thing. She was in the right hands. Vibhuti came for her, and all this happened because she was very, very, very pious and, very devoted woman. So I would just like to end. I think my time is almost getting over, so I will not, bore you more. So I will just end by saying that, our Lord is very loving. You know, he showers infinite love upon us. It's only we who have to understand it and accept it and, stop complaining, because we are so fortunate to be part of the Sai family. How many, people on this earth get this opportunity to be associated with Swami in some form or the other, because see, as a student also, we used to many a times used to think that, Swami doesn't talk to us, Swami talks to the boys, we are always complaining, you know but just look at it the other way around. There are so many people out there waiting to get admissions. We at least we got the opportunity to be part of the institution. I mean, how many get that chance? So we have to just learn to look at things from the right perspective, and we will understand that his ways, he's a mother. So he may just, be teasing you sometimes, but he will never ever deny you of what you deserve. Whatever you deserve, you will surely get it, and Swami will make sure that you get it. So with that, I want to end my talk with a very, very small prayer, praying to Swami to always be with me, be with my family, guiding, guarding, and protecting us. And, whatever happens, he should not desert me, my family members, and everyone, all of us actually. So, अन्यथा शरणं नास्ति त्वमेव शरणं मम तस्मात् कारुण्यभावेन रक्ष रक्ष साईश्वरा हरिः ओम तत्सत् श्री साईश्वरार्पणमस्तु जय साई राम
That was awesome, Jinju. That was really, really nice. Thank you so much for bringing in, weaving everything together from your experience in the at Anantapur to your real life, and Swami has been an integral part. I have to add here is like our grandfathers, like they were brothers. My grandfather, my dad's father, and Jinju's dad's father, they're brothers, and he was a devotee of Swami. So they had bhajans at New Alipur in Calcutta. So they had bhajans for the longest period of time. They're very staunch devotees. And my dad's side, actually, they were not devotees of Swami. So when my mom got married into the family, my mom had nobody else because my mom was a devotee from a long time ago, but she had no support within the immediate family. The only support was, my grandfather from Calcutta. So they believed in Swami and they were always very supportive. So my mom could like really lean on to my grandfather and grandmother and be part of that, like that support system. Because my dad only became a devotee in 1987. Even though my parents got married in 71, my dad became a devotee, but much more staunch devotee, and Swami turned over a lot of things for him in his life in 87. So until then, I think my mom not I shouldn't say it was not a closet devotee. At least initial years were a closet devotee of Swami, but then when we were born, Bal Vikas was okay. Everything Appa was okay with all of us going to the Sundaram and other places, but he was not invested in Swami's value system. So I still remember my grandfather from Calcutta being that support system. He was always there for my mom and dad. He would come as the elder in the whole family. He would represent, be there for all the functions. And whenever they went to Puttaparthi, they would come to Chennai, spend time with us. So we have seen all that. That's Swami's love and how he strongly believed in Swami. Because they've been devotees from 50s and 50s. So I'm really excited that Jinju could come here and share her experiences with all of us, and opening up to any questions. Anyone? I have a couple of questions before I open it to others. Anyone else? I have a specific question, Jinju. Like, what did actually Swami say when you say, hey, you said Swami talks to you like mother and explained to you what are the real things that happen? You need to follow these things. What were those rules? And what did he actually say? Because all of the women from Anantapur keep saying that Swami shares with us, Swami talked to us, Swami said these things. But what did he exactly say? I want to know.
Swami would actually tell us that, how a woman should dress up first. For instance, you should always wear a sari. You should, cover your pallu. No part of you should be visible. And you should always wear a bindi. You should always wear a bangle. I mean, see, these are the smallest things that you would say, always wear bangle, always wear a bindi, always, when you're talking, talk in low voices, don't raise your voice and talk. And when you're going out, don't look here and there unnecessarily. Keep your head down, because uh, when you look here and there, it's not as if you are, uh, you know, submitting to something. It's just that when you look up, unnecessary thoughts crowd your mind. You know, you look at people, and then those thoughts start coming to you. Somebody's wearing something, somebody's behaving some way, somebody's looking, in a certain way. So when you look at them, immediately you start thinking, oh, she looks like this. Oh, look at her dress. Oh, look at this. Those kind of thoughts start crowding your mind. So he would actually tell us that, look down, look at yourself, dress modestly, talk in low voices, do not talk loudly, because and when you go to your in-laws house, it is possible that many a times, you do not agree with what they have to say, but you have to, immediately do not show your displeasure, be patient. And then he would say how you have to be a good mother, you have to be kind, teach your children values, make them good citizens of this country. All these little things, some things which usually, a mother tells her daughter when you get married. So Swami used to tell us then, because he would say one day or the other, sooner or later you will obviously get married. So that time you should remember all this. And most important is, you should bring a good name to me, because the way you behave, it projects, directly projected at me. So if you are good, then people will say good things about. It's not like he really wanted people to praise him or anything, but he wanted that, we students, he gave very much importance to the students, as we all know, because he always wanted us to be the role models for people to follow. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Open it to the floor, to the devotees. Anybody, if you have any questions,
Sandri, I can't hear you. I can't hear you at all.
No, I'm wondering if anybody else had any questions, opening to others.
Sai Ram, is it possible for you to sing a bhajan for us?
Okay, I mean, impromptu, so I actually didn't plan which bhajan I will sing, and let me just sing. And yeah, I can. Soundri, can I sing a bhajan? Am I?
Sure,
is it
of
okay?
course, Jinju, of course, please.
Okay, let me just give me two minutes to think.
Whatever you sang at the Shirdi Mandir.
Oh, Shirdi Mandir was like normal bhajans, no, for an hour. So it was like nothing. Vitthala, Hari Vitthala, Vitthala, Hari Vitthala, Vitthala, Hari Vitthala, Panduranga Vittale, Hari Narayana, Purandara Vittale, Hari Narayana, Hari Narayana, Bhajo Narayana, Sai Narayana, Satya Narayana, Vitthala, Hari Vitthala, Vitthala, Hari Vitthala, Vitthala, Hari Vitthala, Panduranga Vittale, Hari Narayana, Purandara Vittale, Hari Narayana, Hari Narayana, Bhajo Narayana, Sai Narayana, Satya Narayana, Vitthala, Hari Vitthala.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I couldn't, sing louder, or I couldn't take a longer bhajan because it's very early in the morning here and
Oh, okay.
everybody's
It came out so good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sairam Saundari, this is Rukmani Ramya here. Hey, Sairam Janaki.
Hey, Rukmini! Oh!
I've
Hey,
never
you're
heard
there.
you sing, and this is a surprise. And thank you
Oh my
so much.
God. And let me tell you that Rukmini was part of the music Self-Reliance. So you know how well she sings. I mean, you guys must have heard her, but you know. So
but it
Rukmini,
was
my voice
lovely.
is nowhere compared. Oh God, silent are you sitting there? Oh God.
It was lovely, and thank you, Saundari, for sharing this invite with us. Because I told Ganesh that I'm not going to miss this because I wanted to listen to Janaki.
Thank you,
Rukmini,
Rukmini. Thank you
next.
so much.
I'm reaching out to you on a separate thread, okay, Rukmini? So just wait and
Yeah, Rukmini is my batchmate, Saundari.
I know Ramya, I know her very well. So I know that family. So I have her on my list too. This year, so in 21, one of our goals is to have a lot of women Swami students share their experiences, because we have a lot of men share their experiences. We want women to do this summer fun, like,
And you know, one more thing I would add here is that, you know, many people think that Swami, is so close to the boys. So they would actually not know how he was to us because it was never publicly visible. But we had our own time, you know. We had our own secret time, and, you know, which many people don't know. So I think, yeah, it is a good opportunity to bring out more women so that, many people get to hear that women were equally important. Swami gave us equal importance. It's not that he denied us anything, but just that he did not want, you know, there was no public display of his affection, but he was always very, very affectionate towards us also as his daughters. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jinju. Really appreciate your time. You know, it's early in the morning. And thank you and happy birthday again. What a
Oh,
special
thank you
day
so
to.
much. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
And this was really, truly a gift, because I didn't know that you were yearning to speak and you wanted to.
Yes,
tell
you
us
know,
something.
actually, that is what I must thank you. I must thank Swami that for this invite and on this day, you know. So it makes it very special for me. The first satsang, and you know, on my birthday, it's like a birthday gift from Swami. So I will remember it forever and ever.
Thank you so much. Sairam.
Thank you, Sairam. Sairam, everyone.
Sairam, happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Sairam. Please keep me in your prayers.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Hello, Jinju.
Ah, Chitti, thank you for logging in. Thank you for listening.
I am very happy to hear you. Very nice.
Thank you,
Very
Chitti.
nice.
Thank you, Chitti.
So many things are new to me. Like the one Vibri Deba going with Amma. Wow,
Yes.
I was moved. Very nice. Very nice. Chittappa is also hearing.
Jinju, your singing
Yes,
is very
yes, Chittappa.
nice singer. And also Baba and everything was so nice. I am really
Yes.
enjoying.
Very nice.
Thank you. Actually, after mother's passing away, we constantly kept telling each other that, because Amma has passed away, we should not blame Swami, we should not get angry on him, we should not, stop, doing anything that we used to do before. The prayers and everything should continue because the time had come for her and she had to go. And Swami has nothing, to do in that. But we kept thinking of all these things which the way he has taken care of her in the end, and we must be ever grateful to him. So this is what I want to tell all of you also, that when things don't go our way, we should really not get angry on Swami or blame him. We should look at it, give it some time, because with time we will start understanding why things happened in the way it did, and we will certainly understand the reason behind it and how Swami actually did a good for us in some way, which immediately in that moment of anger, we don't understand. So let us never react immediately.
Swami is
Great
there for you
lesson
as
for
a
us.
mother.
Thank you so much and have a wonderful Sunday. Sai Ram. Thanks everyone.
Thank you,
for joining.
Sai Ram.
We'll
Sai
have
Ram, Sai Ram.
news and again we
Sai
will
Ram.
meet all of us soon. Okay, Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, thank you.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Sai Ram.
Thank you, Sai Ram.